is lovely to see you, whether it be in person or whether it be on replay. Sorry, my screen's doing something funny. There we go. Okay, so you may notice I'm somewhere different. I'm in my dining room, which is where I see clients when they come in to see me face to face. And I thought, well, change of scenery rather than sitting at my desk and looking at, or having you look at the mess behind me might be nice. So here I am. I trust that you've all had a wonderful day today, or week, or whenever you're watching this. Today's topic is all about the 80-20 rule. Does it work when it comes to our health, when it comes to how we eat, when it comes to how we look after ourselves? Is the 80-20 rule appropriate and applicable or not? And this was an interesting one to dive into. So a lot of us have this constant frustration when it comes to our health around not knowing what the best thing is to do. We want to be healthy. We still want to be enjoying life. Some of us, not all of us, but some of us, and I'm sure some of you will either know somebody like this or this might resonate with you. Some of us take the all or nothing approach. I either have to be super healthy, super focused, super specific all the time, and if I fall off the wagon, so to speak, that's it, I might as well just give up. That can be a little bit of a mistake, which I'm sure you're aware of, because it can be very, very restrictive. And so this is where the 80-20 rule comes in. And again, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this before. Be sensible, be reasonable, watch what you're eating, watch what you're doing 80% of the time, and relax 20% of the time. Does this work? I'm glad you asked. Well, that's why you're here. Let's start with taking a look, if it's okay with you, where else in life does the 80-20 rule apply without you really being aware of it? Perhaps your house, your home is 80% tidy, 80% clean, 20% not. Perhaps you, when you fill your car up with petrol, you let it get to, just below a quarter and then you fill it back up again, so you don't like to go below roughly 20%. Or maybe you leave it till it's redlining. I know there's people who do that as well, and then you're in a bit of a state of high alert whilst you're driving, trying to find a petrol station. Maybe you plan your meals really well for the weekend and you relax for the weekday, and then you relax on your weekend. A lot of people opt to not drink alcohol Monday to Friday, maybe Monday to Thursday, but then relax again on the weekend. So they adopt a sort of 80-20 rule. You might find when you look back at your energy over the course of a month, if you're still having a regular monthly menstrual cycle, that you have good energy, feel good 80% of the time, and 20% of the time you feel a little bit flatter. Even when we exercise, typically our exercise will follow an 80-20 rule, because you might warm up for 10 minutes, exercise for, now I'm going to lose my ability to count, exercise for 40 minutes, cool down for 10 minutes, and that's going to be roughly 80-20 as well. So we actually do apply, I think it's safe to say, and I'd be curious to know if you agree with me. And if you're watching live, throw a hello in the comments if you like, love to see you. And if I don't acknowledge the comment, that's just because it doesn't always come up straight away on my feed. So apologies if you've commented and I haven't seen it yet. That's the joys of Facebook. Sorry, I digressed for a moment there, didn't I? Where was I going? Oh, seriously. Losing my train of thought. All right, so a lot of us use this 80-20 rule without even necessarily realizing it, but when it comes to our health and when it comes to our food intake, can we make it work? Let's break it down. If you are having 3 meals a day, that means you're having 21 meals a week, right? You with me on that? We'll put the snacks aside for now. When I was writing up notes for this, I started to focus on snacks as well, but I thought that's going to take me down an even more complicated path. So let's just stick with meals. 21 meals a week is fairly typical for most people, 3 good solid meals a day. 80% of that is 17 meals. 20% of that is 4 meals. So if you're following the 80-20 rule when it comes to eating, you could say, right, I'm going to have 4 treat meals a week. My question for you, if you do something like that, is how much of a blowout is that treat meal? Does 4 treat meals a week mean you are having 4 takeaway dinners during the course of the week? And if you are having 4 takeaway dinners, is that a good option for you, do you think? Does 4 treat meals mean you're having dessert 4 nights a week? And is dessert a big bowl of ice cream, for example? Is that a good use of that 20%? A lot of people, that's a generalization, but people will be very focused during the week and then have the weekend where they're completely relaxed. I completely get that. I think the weekends are a nice time to relax. However, if you decide that the weekend is going to be completely relaxed and you're not going to worry about any of your meals, you potentially have 6 meals that are not ideal on the weekend. And that's 30% of all of your meals, as opposed to 20% if you're following the 80-20 rule, for example. If you pair those meals with extra alcohol on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, which I know plenty of us do, been there myself, so please, there's no judgment associated with that at all. This is just looking at what it is that you're doing. So if you spend a weekend where you just eat whatever you want, have less healthy meals, maybe you go out for breakfast and then you have a lunch at a pub somewhere and then you go out to a nice restaurant for dinner. I don't know too many people who do all of those things on every weekend. Using it as an example, if you're doing that and you're having quite a few drinks as well, are you really following an 80-20 rule? Are you following a 70-30? Or maybe even by the time you add the alcohol in, it's really becoming more of a 60-40 type of approach. So the 80-20 rule absolutely can work depending on what you do with that 20%. And depending on whether or not you let that 20% creep up a little bit. Sure, it's going to creep up when you're on holidays. That's what holidays are for, right? But if you're doing it consistently, every weekend that what's supposed to be 20% creeps up to 30 or 35 or 40, then you're not really working within the bounds of the concept of 80-20. Are you with me on that? Does that make sense? We've all been there. We've all done that. And look, I wasn't going to talk about snacks, but I'm just going to throw them in there as well. If you are a snacker, if you are a morning tea person and an afternoon tea person, which incidentally, most of us don't really need morning tea and afternoon tea every day of the week, particularly if you're having a good quality meal at breakfast, lunch and dinner. If you are a snacker, you might potentially be having 14 snacks a week. 80% of 14 is 11. So that means you want to be having 11 healthy snacks and only 3 treat type snacks. If one of your regular snacks, afternoon tea, is a couple of biscuits with your cup of tea, for example, and you're having that 5-6 days a week, again, you're tipping out of that 80-20 rule and you're moving into the 70-30, 60-40, whatever the case may be. So when we look at or when we think about how we are managing our food intake and how we are managing our healthy versus less healthy, it's really valuable to look from the perspective of the whole week and then be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself about whether or not you're stretching that 20%. What can help? Planning your week in advance. Obviously, we know that. Some of us are brilliant planners, some of us are not so brilliant planners, some of us are, myself included, good at planning when we're focused, and then we fall off the planning wagon for a few weeks and we wonder why we fall off it, because we know it's better when we're on it, but it's hard sometimes to plan. The more you plan, the better your life will be, and the more you can be aware of how many meals you are having that are healthy versus less than healthy. Acknowledge your excuses. If you're making excuses, acknowledge them, be aware of them, and think about if you are having those, if you decide 4 treat meals is okay, spread them out. It doesn't need to be 4 nights of takeaway, as an example. It might be you have one special breakfast that is slightly more decadent than your usual breakfast, for example. It might be you go out to lunch. You can still make a sensible choice. It doesn't need to be a completely over-the-top choice. Does that make sense? I'm sure it makes sense. You guys are with me on this. You know what I'm talking about. Notice how and when you are in that 20% versus the 80%, and then ask yourself, is this the appropriate use of my 20%? Is this what I want to be doing to maintain my healthy approach to life? Apply it so it works for you. Get the most out of it by all means. All or nothing, no fun for anyone. Don't enjoy it, don't recommend it, don't like it. 80-20, love it in theory, just make sure it works for you. As always, you know where to find me if you need more targeted advice and guidance. And just a reminder, free challenge kicks off next week, kickstarting your weight loss. So if you are in that mindset of, I know what I need to do to lose some weight, I just haven't been able to get started, this challenge is for you. This challenge will help you find that motivation. It'll give you some practical tips and tricks that will help you get it underway, and it'll be a bit of fun along the way. It's as simple as that. So if you're interested in that, shoot me a message or comment below. Would love to have you join on. It's all done via Zoom. If you can't make the live events each day, you can watch on replay. So it's super simple, and we have a lot of fun. Okay, I'm heading off. Enjoy what is left of the day, of the week. Have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you for next week's Think About Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, if you're watching on replay, #replay. Take care. Bye-bye.